From July 1942 to September 1943, 6,000 Jews a day were slaughtered here with bloody efficiency. Within an hour of leaving the trains, they were dead. At the entrance to this gas chamber stood a sadistic guard who tortured and mutilated his victims before starting the engines that poured out the gas. He came to be known as Ivan Grozny, Ivan the Terrible.
He lived a normal life, a quiet neighborhood, a steady job, a family. For decades, no one suspected anything. But behind that ordinary face was a past buried in war and soaked in blood. They called him Ivan the Terrible. His name was John Demjanjuk, born in 1920 in Soviet Ukraine, when World War II began. He was drafted into the Red Army, but everything changed in 1942, when he was captured by Nazi forces. That moment is where the story splits. Prisoner, or something far worse. According to investigators, he didn't stay a prisoner for long. Instead, he was recruited, trained by the Nazis, to become something else. A guard. Not just any guard, but one assigned to places the world would later call death factories. One of those places was Treblinka, a camp where nearly 1 million people were murdered. Men, women, children. Most didn't last more than a few hours after arrival, and witnesses would later describe a man who didn't just follow orders, but enjoyed the suffering. They called him Ivan the Terrible, a guard who operated to the gas chambers, who beat prisoners with metal pipes, dragged them to their deaths, and tortured them without hesitation, some survivors claimed. His cruelty stood out, even among monsters. Decades later, those same survivors would see a photograph, and they pointed. That's him. That's Ivan. And just like that, a man living a quiet life in America became one of the most wanted war criminals in the world. By the 1970s, U.S. investigators began digging into his past. They found documents, photographs, and testimonies, enough to strip him of his citizenship and send him somewhere he never expected. The trial began in the 1980s. It wasn't just a court case. It was global. Survivors took the stand, looking directly at him. Some broke down crying. Others stared in silence. But many said the same thing. I remember his eyes. One witness got close, looked directly at him, and recoiled, calling him a murderer, saying those eyes were the same eyes from the gas chambers. The court agreed. In 1988, John Demjanjuk was found guilty, sentenced to death. A man who had lived freely for decades was now waiting to be executed for crimes committed in the shadows of history. But then everything changed. New evidence surfaced, documents from Soviet archives suggesting something shocking, that Ivan the Terrible might have been someone else entirely. Another name appeared, Ivan Marchenko, a different man, possibly the real monster from Treblinka. Suddenly, the case wasn't so clear anymore, and doubt is powerful in a courtroom. In 1993, Israel's Supreme Court made a decision. They overturned the conviction, not because he was innocent, but because they couldn't prove he was that man. After years on death row, he returned to the United States, to the same quiet life, same streets, same house. But now, the world knew his name. Most people thought that was the end. They were wrong, because investigators weren't done with him. Even if he wasn't Ivan the Terrible, there was still evidence that he had been part of something horrific. Years later, another case was built, not for Treblinka, but for Sobibor, another extermination camp, another place where thousands were sent to die. This time, they didn't need to prove he killed anyone directly. Just being there was enough, because every guard was part of the machine. In 2009, he was deported again, this time to Germany, old, frail, but still facing justice, for something that happened over 60 years earlier. The court found him guilty, not as Ivan the Terrible, but as an accessory to mass murder, over 28,000 victims, connected to the camp where he served. He was sentenced to prison, but before his appeal could be completed, he died in 2012. A convicted man, but also technically innocent? So what was the truth? Was he really Ivan the Terrible? Or just another guard, lost in history's chaos? We may never know. But one thing is certain. For decades, a man with a dark past lived among ordinary people and almost got away with it.